What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens episode review. Today, guys, we are going to be going over episode 58 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens. I am very excited to be going over this episode with you guys because, boy, oh boy, do we have an episode on our hands today. So, without further ado, let's not waste any more time, and let's get right into it. So generally speaking, what were my thoughts on episode 58 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens? Well, I thought the episode was really good. I really did enjoy this episode quite a bit, and a lot happened in this episode, I will say. And I'm very excited to get into this episode with you guys. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So the episode starts off with a brief conversation between Yuka and Yugioh. I shouldn't say really conversation. It was literally Yuka asked the question to Yugioh. Yugioh responded, and then Yuka and Euron ended up leaving the room. Basically, Yuka asked if he was even happy that Euron won his duel from the last episode and ended up tying the points. Yugioh just says, yeah, I'm happy that Euron ended up winning the duel, and then the two walk off. And then we had the conversation with President Drone and Yugioh about the whole situation, because with Euron and Yuka winning their two duels and tying up the points, it really kind of messes with their whole plan right now, because we all know that Yugioh wants to be the only president remaining, and the way to do that is to have all the other siblings lose their duels and lose their positions as Goa presidents. And because Yuka and Euron ended up winning their duels, they still have their president roles. And Yugioh basically tells President Drone not to really worry about it. Their plan can still work even if Yuka and Euron are still presidents right now. Walks up to the card that they've been hyping up for so freaking long now, and finally takes the card out of the pod and tells President Drone, now it is my turn to go and face off against Yuka's team. So it seems like Yugioh is going to go up against Yuka's team next and is going to use this card against Yuka in the group, which makes sense. They've been hyping up this card for so long now. I feel like it would have been really weird if they didn't actually show this card in this episode, but they were going to actually show this card in this episode. But at this point of the episode, we still don't know what the card actually does, but we'll talk about that a little later on. But getting into the scene with Yuka and his crew, we have Gakuto, Roman, Yuga, Swirly, and Advisor M, which is very cool to see Advisor M again, which is Mimi's third persona, I guess you can say. You know, you have regular Mimi, you have Advisor M Mimi, and then you had President Mimi, I guess, but you know, she's not a president anymore, so I guess this is just her now new alter ego now, just her Advisor M and just regular everyday Mimi. So it's very cool to see Advisor M again. I don't think we've seen Advisor M since episode, I think it was 21 was the last time we saw it. So very cool. So after having a little bit of a funny moment where Yuga ends up saying Mimi's name, and as you guys remember from that episode, they promised Mimi that they would not basically blow her cover of being Advisor M, and basically they were able to get around from Swirly knowing that that was Mimi. And then we get basically into the whole discussion of what to do next. I mean, right now they're in a 2-2 situation. They are at a very dangerous point right now to where they can lose another duel and the Goa siblings will be ahead. So now they have to try to figure out a way how to beat the Goha siblings. And basically this whole meeting ended up being was who was going to be the next opponent, which we all know is going to be Yugioh, the last member of the Goha siblings. But what's very interesting about the conversation was that we learned that Yugioh is referred to as the Puppet Master. Now, why is he referred to the Puppet Master? Well, that's where we get into the next scene with Luke, which, keep in mind, was not at the meeting at the time, because apparently he told the crew that he was going to be eating at the ramen shop. Apparently he won something there at the ramen shop and was able to get a whole buttload of food over there, so that's why he wasn't at the meeting. But we see Luke finally return to the school. He's walking through the hallways full as all can be and sees Yuga walking down the hallway, which is very interesting because remember, Yuga was at the meeting at this point, so Yugioh, it's very weird that he's walking down the hallway, and you would assume that the meeting would already be over at this point, and that's what Luke thinks. He runs up to Yugioh and says, "Hey, is the meeting over already?" Goes and grabs Yugioh's shoulder, and then Yugioh just falls over weirdly, and that was a very concerning scene. You even see Luke apologizing for it. And then one of the creepiest things in this episode happened where you see Yugioh turn his head all the way to the back of his head, and then you just see Luke just scream, and everyone is concerned. Everyone knows that that's Luke's scream, but they don't know where he's at. And then when Yugioh and the crew leave the room, they just see a whole bunch of puppets in the middle of the school, which is very ominous and very creepy. You even have the lighting be red and all that. And then here comes Yugioh on his hovercraft and basically runs over all the puppets. Gakuto kind of gets mad about the whole situation because, he's riding his hovercraft in school, which is banned. And Yugioh looks at the puppets and he knows what's going on. He knows where this is coming from. And they run outside the school and they see the big Goha ship above the elementary school. And then here comes Yugioh attached to strings like he is a puppet of his own, and basically introduces himself to Yugioh and the crew, which is, again, very disturbing and very creepy. And this is basically where we get a little bit of conversation between the two, and then this is when we get prepared for the duel. And you even have Yugioh saying that he's honored to be able to duel against Yugioh. And, you have Neil sitting up the stage, which it looks like it's going to be a circus theme, which is very interesting. And then they end up going to the circus little area, and then that's where we get into the duel of this episode. The duel itself was great. I really did enjoy this duel. During the duel, we ended up seeing the Goddess of Reversal, which I really did expect to see that card. It was the only card in the opening that we did not see. But we also saw an upgrade of Goddess of Reversal. I can't really remember the name to save my life. I'm not used to calling her by her OCG name anymore. I used to call her by her OCG name, but because I play in the TCG so much, I'm so used to just saying the TCG's names now these days, which for some reason I can't break that habit. I don't know why, but we see the upgrade of Goddess of Reversal, which is really cool. We even see Yugioh's maximum, the volcano looking maximum monster, Hyper Volcania, I think is what it's called. So really cool to see that maximum again. And I will say though, I always thought it was a little bit weird, but there's a reason why for it when we get a little bit further into the duel. But I thought it was very weird that he used this maximum monster, because if you guys remember, they have been promoting a new maximum monster for Yugioh that has not been used yet, and that's the fighter jet looking overroad monster. He still has not used that maximum monster in the duel so far. We even see Brave of Twilight and Brave of Dawn lie across in this episode as well, which was pretty cool. I did like the design of those monsters. And here is where things started to turn and made this episode very interesting. So the first thing that ended up happening was that we saw the Rush Duel robot collapsing a little bit. And what I mean by that is that we see the Rush Duel robot lose one of its arms because it's been moving around for so much time now. It finally lost one of the pieces of the robot, which was, I believe it was his right arm, which we do find out is the control panel for the maximum monsters. That's why we see in the episode that Yugioh's maximum monsters were acting a little bit strange. Something was really wrong with his maximum monsters, and that was because of the fact that the Rush Duel robot lost one of his arms. And what was going to happen is that if they weren't able to fix that piece of the robot, Maximums would have disappeared right there and then, because without that arm, Maximums cannot exist in Rush Duels. And then this is where we see a very crazy scene, as apparently we find out that the robot is now sentient, I guess, because the robot, even strapped into that metal armor looking thing, or that metal strapped looking thing, I don't really know what it is, but even with that, that robot goes over to the arm, picks it up with its own might and starts to try to reattach the arm to itself. And Yugioh is shocked by this. In fact, I shouldn't just say Yugioh, but everyone that was watching this was just in shock. And, you know, Yuga's just kind of standing there. He's hoping that the robot was going to be able to get its arm back on. And the robot does. He is able to get his arm reattached and Maximum's him saved, which I'm very glad that they did that, because if they would have went down the route of the robot couldn't fix its arm and Yuga can no longer use his Maximum and that's how he loses, I would have been pretty upset. I don't think they needed to do that. I'm glad that they kind of made it a little bit of intensity, made you kind of think, is Yuga going to lose his Maximum monster and lose right there? Nope, that is not the case whatsoever. His Maximum is able to survive, and he's able to deal a massive amount of damage to Yugioh, and I think it brought him down. I can't remember. I think it had to be around like I think it was 500 life points. I think it was. And then this is where one of the biggest moments of this episode comes in. Probably the biggest moment of this episode comes from, we see Yugioh takes his turn. We do get to see a glimpse of his hand, which I'm not going to talk about the hand. He summons 2 monsters in the field. He actually uses monster reincarnation in this duel as well, which is very cool. I'm very glad that we got to see this card. I didn't know who was going to use monster reincarnation. I predicted maybe Roman would use it, since she's the only character to not really use an old card or a legend card. Well, Gakuto I don't think has actually used a legend card, so I'm wrong about that. Gakuto and Roman are the only 2 that have not used legend cards, but Gakuto kind of has Sword and Shield, so I kind of count it. So I thought maybe Roman would use Monster Reincarnation, but nope, Yugioh uses it, but which I'm completely fine about. I have no problem with that. He summons 2 monsters out onto the field, and we see him sacrifice them, and we don't know what's going on. We see this big light looming behind him, and then he pulls out a card from his hand, shows it to the audience, and says, "Fusion." Fusion is now in Rush Duels, ladies and gentlemen, and that is where a big part of this discussion is going to be, is Fusions being in Rush Duels. And that was the big reveal, that Rush Duels are going to be, or Fusion is going to be in Rush Duels, excuse me, which I've heard a lot of mixed feelings about this, and you guys probably already know my thoughts about it. I'm over the moon about this. I've been asking for an old mechanic, I think, since this has been teased at. I've really wanted an old mechanic in this game, and we finally got it in the form of Fusion, which, I'm going to be honest, it's probably the one that I would want it the most. Now, I will say, it's not because it's my favorite, but it makes the most sense, as fusions are the most well-known mechanic in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Today, as it was in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Since the beginning, dating back in the first ever set that was released for both the OCG and the TCG in the form of Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragons. And fusions are the first extra deck mechanic to be introduced into the Master Rule format, and that mechanic set a presence for the other extra deck mechanics that we would get in the following years. So honestly, not only does it make sense that this would be the old mechanic that we get for Rush Duels, but it also makes sense for it being the first extra deck mechanic to be in the Rush Duel game. Now, I want to get real quickly into the topic that has been going around ever since fusions have been introduced into the Rush Duel format, and that is the question: since fusions are now in Rush Duels, did fusions open the floodgates for the other old mechanics to come into the Rush Duel format? Now, me personally, as much as I think it would be cool to see the other mechanics, maybe not all of them, but maybe to see another one in the game, I don't think because fusions are in the Rush Duel game, that means that the other ones will come into the Rush Duel format. The only way I will truly believe that is if we see one of the other mechanics, whether that's Synchro, whether that's Xyz, or whatever other mechanic comes into the game. That's when I would believe it. The reason I don't believe it with fusions is because fusions have been in the game since the beginning, and I feel like with that, the reason that fusions are in this game is because it is so associated with Yu-Gi-Oh! That, or the Master Rule format, I should be more specific on that, it makes sense for them to put it in the Rush Duel format. That doesn't mean that because fusions are going to be in Rush Duels that the other ones will be in the game. That's still up for debate, I do believe. So, in my opinion, just because fusions are in Rush Duels, it did not open any floodgates for the other mechanics. So, with that in mind, and I'll also say this, for the people that were disappointed, because I know a lot of people were disappointed on this, I've seen most people have mixed feelings about this, whether they were disappointed. Most of them were in the middle, and then there were some that were very high on it, like I was. And let me just start off by saying this as well. Just because we got fusions as this new mechanic does not mean that there is going to be no more new mechanics in the game. I do believe that there is a good chance that the next new mechanic that we get in the game, if we do get another new mechanic, is going to be a new mechanic. And I think I'm fine with that at this point, because I'm going to be honest, really the only mechanic that I wanted in Rush Duels was Fusion, because it made the most sense. I just feel like Yu-Gi-Oh! Wouldn't feel the same without Fusion, since Fusions have been in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Since the beginning. But that's just my thoughts on that whole topic. I want to know your guys' thoughts. Are you happy that Fusions are in there? Are you alright with them? You're kind of excited, but you're just like, they're in there just to be in there? Or are you very disappointed in the fact that fusions are going to be in Rush Duels? I'm very curious to know what you guys' thoughts are on that. But another thing, actually, I don't want to actually forget about this. The other thing that came with this new mechanic is a new type of monster. Apparently, we're getting a new type in the form of Cyborg type, which I was not expecting at all. I don't think anyone was really speculating a new type, or at least that I saw. So, let me kind of quickly give my thoughts on that. Very interesting type, the Cyborg type, because the thing that's weird about this type is that we kind of already have monsters in the training card game that look like Cyborg monsters that would fit into the Cyborg type, but because Cyborgs are now being released, those monsters that we got that look like Cyborg types are either machines or psychic. Like Jinzo, for example, is a psychic type monster, and Jinzo looks like a cyborg, but it's not actually a cyborg type. So with that in mind, do I think it is a little unnecessary? Maybe, especially since we do have monsters that can fit the cyborg type. I still think it's pretty interesting, though. Now, a question that has been posed, and I want to kind of answer and get your guys' thoughts on this as well, is that, will this translate to the Master Rule game? Me, personally, I don't think it will be. I think what they're going to try to do is make Cyborg type a Rush Duel exclusive type. And if that ends up being the case, I don't mind it. If Rush Duels have their own, like, Rush Duel exclusive types, I think that would be really cool. I mean, you got mechanics in the form of maximum summoning that's exclusive to Rush Duels, so why not have types be exclusive to it? And you have normal monsters, spells, and trap cards and effect monsters that are exclusive to Rush Duels as well. So having a type that's exclusive to Rush Duels is not a bad thing whatsoever. And maybe the Master Rule format will have its own exclusive types in that game. So honestly, with that dynamic in mind, I think that would be pretty interesting, and I do wonder if they'll add any more types in the Rush Duel game exclusively going forward. So with that in mind, I do think that Cyborgs will be a Rush Duel exclusive type. But I want to know your guys' thoughts on that as well. Do you think it will go into the Master Rule format, or do you think it will be restrictive to Rush Duels? Now, would I mind it come to the Master Rule format? I wouldn't. I think it would be pretty cool to see if Cyborg types can really do something in the metagame. I would be really interested in that, but I really don't think Cyborgs will be in the Master Rule format. But that's an interesting debate that I think would be fun to kind of discuss. But I think the last thing I want to kind of talk about in regards to this duel is the result of the duel. Yuga ends up losing this duel, which I don't think anyone is really surprised about this. I do like the fact that Fusions beats maximums. I think that is very symbolic, because you would think because Yuga has a maximum monster that, oh, he just won, because they have set a presence at the beginning of the show that you cannot win a duel without a maximum. The only one that has ever beaten a maximum, like actually destroyed a maximum monster before this duel, was Luke. And Luke is the strongest duelist in the universe right now. So honestly, it took the strongest duelist in the Sevens universe to destroy a maximum monster. I mean, Gakuto did come close, but he didn't actually destroy the monster, so he doesn't really count for the scenario I'm making. So, with that in mind, the fact that Yugioh was now able to beat a maximum user without a maximum monster, it's now the second time in a row that a maximum user lost a duel while using a maximum monster. So with that in mind, it makes it to where their strongest weapon in the form of maximum monsters, just because it's a very powerful monster, they can't just rely on it forever, as Yugioh and Luke were able to beat over maximum monsters, and now the crew has to figure out a way to beat this new threat, and they can't just rely on maximums anymore. They have to go back to the drawing board, and now they have to try to figure out a way not only to save rush duels, but to try to get over this fusion monster. So that's going to be very interesting going forward, but with that in mind, we now got to talk about the result of this duel. Yugioh ends up losing this duel and now has 6 losses under his belt in the first 58 episodes of the show. Now, me personally, I'm not really happy with it, if I'm going to be completely honest. I mean, let me just start off by saying this. I don't think it's bad that Yugioh is losing duels. I'm very happy that we have a protagonist that's actually losing duels. However, my problem with this loss, well, there's a couple of things. One, it's continuing the streak of Yugioh can't even get a 3-win streak. To put this in reference, the last time that Yugioh has had a streak of wins was when he had his 9 streak from episodes 3 to 22, with episodes 2 being his loss against Luke for the first time, and 23 being his loss against Nail for the first time. And ever since that, the best streak that he's gotten is a 2 streak, and that is it. And he has been losing so constantly at this point. Now, I'm not saying that he should lose a good amount of duels. I think 6 losses are a good amount in maybe 90 episodes, not 50 episodes, almost 60 episodes. I really do believe, I think a good amount of loss ratio should be for a protagonist is if they have, I would say in a percentage-wise of 90%. I think that would be very good for a protagonist, since your protagonist should be a very strong duelist if he's going to be taking on these threats. And Yugioh has definitely not had that in the last half of this show. It's been around like a 50% at this point. So me personally, I'm kind of getting sick and tired of Yugioh losing a little bit. I'm more so just want him to get a 3-win streak, since it's been a while since he's had that. But it doesn't hurt his character whatsoever. I'm not saying that either. It's just, I do want going forward just to kind of give him a break a little bit. That's more what I want to see more than anything. Is I just want to see more of a gap between his losses, not just be like every 3 duels he's going to have 1 loss in there. I want him to get a nice streak, whether that's a 4-win streak or a 5-win streak or something like that. Hell, I would just love a 3-win streak at this point. I just want Yugioh to get some type of streak going and not just being a punching bag every arc. Let him maybe go an arc without being defeated. Maybe do something like that. But another problem that I had with it is for the sole reason that this is the 3rd time this has happened that Yugioh has been blindsided. He got blindsided by Nail and Asana with their maximums, and now he got blindsided by Yugioh with his fusion monster. And in my opinion, I think we're really getting into the dangerous routes of just repetitiveness, because this is the 3rd goddamn time that this has happened. So I really do hope that going forward, Yugioh would be the one to stop losing to the main villain by getting blindsided. Now, the reason why I'm going to be a little bit fair on this is because with Yugioh's fusion monster ace, it had an effect where it can only gain attack points if Yuga controlled a warrior monster, and I did mention in my summary preview analysis that I wanted Luke to be the one to duel because I think it would be a bigger impact. Him with his dragon monsters would not work with Yugioh and his effective as cyborg type. The only other thing, which actually I forgot to mention, that with fusion monsters in this Rush Duel format, how they work is that they get 2 effects, but they can only activate 1. So you can either choose to use this effect or the other effect. In the case of Yugioh's ace, he can either destroy a set card or target a cyborg type monster on his field, and it gains attack points equal to a warrior type monster on Yuga's field. I think that's what it was, which, by the way, to me that just sounds like a garbage effect. The fact that you have to have specifically a cyborg type on your field and your opponent has to control a warrior type monster, I don't know. Like, I feel like more than anything, if you're going to be using this fusion monster, you're probably going to be using the effect to be able to destroy a set card. I see that one being used way more than this, because that second effect is way too restrictive, or at least in my opinion. But getting back into what I was saying, because of this effect, I just don't think it worked if Yugioh dueled Luke. So this I'm going to be a little bit more fair with, but for the love of God, can please, the next duel that we have with the main villain of the show, can Yuga be the one to not duel the main villain for the first time? Because we know what's going to happen. Yuga is going to duel Yugioh in a couple of episodes from now and is going to beat Yugioh, which is going to continue that repetitiveness streak because it happened in the last 2 arcs, or at least that's what I believe is going to happen. So going forward, I do hope that starts to change. I don't have as much of a problem with it right now. I just hope going forward we can start to break it before it gets too much into repetitiveness territory. That's all I want to say in regards to that. But I want to know your guys' thoughts about Yuga losing this many times. I don't have a problem with Yuga losing. I just want him to kind of have a little bit of a break from losing duels, and I want him to have a nice win streak going forward, more than just a 2-win streak. Whether that's a 3-win streak, a 5-win streak, or another 9 streak, I don't care what it is. I just want Yuga to take a break from the L's and just get a nice win streak going, and I want them to kind of stop being repetitive with, Yuga gets blindsided by a new mechanic or someone using a mechanic that he was not expecting and then losing the duel for that. So that's just my opinion. I want to know you guys' thoughts on that. I think the last thing just to kind of mention at the end of the episode was that you had a very ominous scene after Yuga lost the duel. He kind of sits up, doesn't know what the heck just happened, and you just see Yugioh just keep repeating fusion, and then we see these mannequins show up right behind him, and it was such a creepy scene. Like, Yugioh was very creepy in this episode, and probably is becoming my favorite Gohan sibling. Euron really bumped himself up from that duel from the last episode and how he acted in the last episode, but because of you in this episode, he became back to being my favorite Gohan sibling out of the entire group. Which, let me know, do you guys like Yugioh more or do you like Euron more? Like, I'm very interested in that because I know a lot of people that I talk to about Euron loves Euron as a character, and I would love to know, do you like Yugioh more or do you like Euron more? But with that being said, that is going to be it for this episode review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys' thoughts were on episode 58 of Yugioh Sevens. Did you love the episode? Did you think the episode was okay? Or did you not really like the episode at all? I do want to quickly mention this since we're at the end of this video. I do apologize for the lack of reviews lately and just the lack of content in general. This whole month has just been chaos for me, from work to just me being out of town for most of the time. It just was really hard to really get content out for you guys, so I really do apologize for that, but I'm going to be trying to get out some content very soon. I'm actually going to be doing a video in regards to some new legend cards, so I'm very excited for that. I have some reviews for the manga series as well. I have a OCG Structures review I'm going to be doing and 2 Sevens manga reviews I'm going to be doing. I still got the new series that I'm going to be doing, and I have the Zexal reviews as well that I'm going to be trying to get out at some point as well. So I hope you guys are excited for that. But guys, that is going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day.